swap that in for what's there. Okay.
Not time yet.
Yeah.
The goal is to have the last thing here before the meeting starts, so that's in your brain.
Mayor.
All right, good evening. I will now call to order our regular scheduled Apex Town Council meeting for Wednesday, November 4th, 2020. And I would like to welcome those who've joined us on live stream. If you are here tonight to speak during public forum or public hearing, please make your way to my right and sign up on the appropriate sheet so we can recognize you at that time. And what I want to do now is start with an invocation for our meeting tonight. The town of Apex values and celebrates diversity and inclusion. We see diversity as a strength that binds our community together. Inviting members from different faith communities to deliver an invocation at the beginning of our council meeting supports this unity. Recognizing that not everyone practices the same traditions, we welcome you to have a private moment of silence during this time. So what I would like to do is start us off in a quick prayer. And if you would bow your head and join me in prayer. Father God, I thank you for this time. I thank you for my council colleagues and our staff members that you have assigned for this time. Continue to lead us and guide us in your wisdom, and also give your love and understanding and peace in the times that we're in today. Continue, Lord, to point us to you as we continue to do your will. In his name we pray, amen. All right, if you would join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you very much. Before we move on to our presentations, I do want to do this tonight because they don't get recognized enough. And we do a lot here in Apex, and we assign a lot of tasks, a lot of responsibilities. So what I would like to do right now is have any staff member for the town of Apex to please stand, if you would. And those of you who are not staff members, what I want you to do is join me in a round of applause and thank our staff members for all they do. Thank you. All right, we'll start tonight with a proclamation, Small Business Saturday 2020, and we're going to have a shared reading by our council. We'll start with Councilwoman Cheryl Stallings.
Small Business Saturday 2020. Whereas the town of Apex, North Carolina, celebrates our local small businesses and the contributions they make to our economy and to our unique and vibrant community character, and whereas this year, small businesses are navigating the unprecedented challenges of a global pandemic as they continue to support their employees and meet the needs of their local communities, and
whereas according to the United States Small Business Administration, there are 31.7 million small businesses in the United States, and whereas according to the United States Small Business Administration in North Carolina, there are 934,604 small businesses in North Carolina, and they were responsible for creating 62,614 net new jobs in 2019, and
Whereas, according to the 2019 Small Business Saturday Consumer Insights Survey, 96% of consumers in the United States agree that shopping at small, independently owned business supports their commitment to making purchases that have a positive social, economic, and environmental impact. And whereas the same survey reveals 97% of consumers who shopped on Small Business Saturday agree that small businesses are essential to their community. And
Whereas the same survey reveals 95% of consumers who shopped on Small Business Saturday said the day makes them want to shop or eat at small, independently owned businesses all year long, not just during the holiday season. And whereas companies planning promotions on Small Business Saturday said the day helps their business stand out during the busy holiday shopping season and contributes significantly to their holiday sales each year. And
whereas public awareness of the contributions made by Apex local businesses is the key to sustaining a healthy business climate, and whereas the citizens of Apex are grateful to the small businesses of Apex for the presence in the community, and
whereas the town of Apex joins the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and the Apex Chamber of Commerce in supporting America's small businesses. Now therefore, I, Jacques K. Gilbert, Mayor of the town of Apex, North Carolina, do hereby proclaim Saturday, November 28, 2020, as Small Business Saturday. We urge the residents of our community and communities across the country to support small businesses and merchants on Small Business Saturday and throughout the year. Signed this 4th day of November 2020. Thank you very much. We'll turn around with applause. Okay, we now move on to presentation 1. Jacoby and Tayon Dancy, event organizers, presentation of proposed events to commemorate the Martin Luther King Jr. holiday in 2021.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor and Town Council. So I am Tayon Dancy. My better half is at home helping with the kids tonight. So I do want to present a proposal. This proposal is around commemorating Martin Luther King Jr. In our town. I know historically that is a paid day for our town employees, but last year, Councilwoman Killingsworth actually questioned why we had no events here in the Apex town. And so in this case, my husband and I were also having those same types of discussions. Mayor Pro Tem Dozier remembered some discussion I mentioned with her as well. And so when it came up last year, she thought about us and came to us and said this was also mentioned. And so one of the things we want to do is to be able to host MLK events. My husband and I would volunteer our time to do the planning and execution of the events that we have proposed here. We would love to be able to work with some of the organizations that serve the town of Apex. I am a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, and our sorority does a lot in this town. We even have a Adopt a Highway over off of Friendship Road. Another organization that my husband is a member of is the Xi Mu chapter of Omega Psi Phi. So another organization that could partner with us to give us the hands and feet to help to execute this type of event. What I want to do is just kind of go through at a high level some of the proposals for the days that we would want to host and some of the ideas that have been proposed around the events during those days. So the first proposal is for Friday, January 15th, which is the actual birthday. We want to coordinate a event that incorporates our local schools, both elementary, middle, and high schools, with an essay or speech contest. There would be a winner from each level, elementary, middle, and high school. And within that event, we would also introduce a step show, which is events that our Greek letter Black organizations do when we come together just in unity to enjoy and have fun. I don't know if you recall, but there was a step team at the Apex Friendship High School a few years back. And it was on the news and in articles, but there was a lack of understanding about what the children were doing who wanted to invoke those step shows. And so this is a way to help educate our community about that. It is a very important act that our Greek organizations do. It promotes unity for us, and also goes back to African heritage as well. And so it's a great way to, one, highlight MLK and the signs of the times through speeches that the teachers possibly will also participate in helping to grade and decide who are the winners for that, but then also educating our population about the Black Greek organizations, what stepping means. If you don't know, MLK himself was a member of a Black Greek organization. He was a member of Phi Alpha fraternity. And so there are also some educational clips that we would like to include in this to share about MLK and his participation there. So that would be January 15th. The idea was to be able to host that in Holly Cultural Center. I have an alternative plan as well for a virtual event instead of in person if we are not able to do that given COVID-19 restrictions. And so in your papers you should see both alternatives, and we would be willing to do whichever way is defined. Our organization, Delta Sigma Theta, actually has a mandate right now where we have to do everything in person, so it's likely that that Friday, not in person but online, so it's likely that that Friday event would be online. So that is Friday. For Saturday, we want to host a march and unity prayer. And so this would be for all of us in the community to come together. I am also a minister. I'm a minister at Mount Zion Church in Cary, North Carolina, though. But we have lots of partnerships with churches here in Apex. And so the idea behind the Saturday event is to partner with the churches, multicultural churches, so that we come together and commemorate MLK with a march like many of the towns around us do, but also incorporate a unity prayer with that as well. That event can also be done in person or virtually, and your proposal includes both. If it were to be done in person, the budget you have is about $3,300. That basically is a setup that's required to have the mic, stage, and things like that set up within the town. We would start the march. The goal would be to start it at First Baptist Church. And then in here, in downtown Apex, we would have a host of speakers, hopefully some youth speakers as well, to commemorate MLK on that day, flyers and things like that if we needed to create those. But the biggest part of the budget is actually associated with food. The idea was it would be early if we, in the event, have something that's self-packaged that can be handed out to those who came out to support the event. Obviously, if it's virtual, the food aspect will not be needed, but some of the other marketing and items would be needed. We're also recommending a $50 gift card for each of the levels of students who win for the speeches. And I also felt to mention on Friday, the students would have an opportunity to do their speeches in person or via a pre-recorded video as well if we need to do it online or virtually. The other event is for Sunday, and that would be basically us coming together unified for church. And so Apex First Baptist Church is a historic church within Apex. I know they have been very active in the community, as well as even hosting some of the rallies that were held this year. And so the proposal there, if they would oblige, is for them to host a service for that day. I believe they are still meeting virtually, so it potentially would be a virtual event as well that we could join in online and participate at no cost for that event. If it's held outside, the organizations that I would reach out to that I mentioned earlier, we would try to solicit some in-kind donations from them to kind of serve as partners with us in this event. But if it's virtual, those organizations are offering up their Zoom accounts for free for us to use to execute the events. And I think that's one more item. So one of the other ideas was around art, being able to have an art display perhaps at the Holly Center as well. Even if we're not allowed to do some of the other events in person, if we could still leverage the Holly Cultural Center for a Black art exhibit, that would be great to commemorate some of the signs of the times as well as MLK. I do have some personal contacts that are artists, so we may be able to arrange that if we are allowed to also use that location for art exhibits of some local artists. So with that, we are, my husband and I, Jacoby Dancy, and my name is Tayon Dancy. We are proposing that the town accepts this proposal, much thanks to Councilwoman Killisworth, who proposed this last year. And then for Mayor Pro Tem to remember that we've even had that discussion, and we would love for the town to support this. All of the other towns around us do. They all do events during MLK. We have, actually, our organizations have supported those events in all of the small towns around us, and so it would be great for Town of Apex to join the fold.
Okay. All right, thank you, Ms. Dan.
Thank you.
Y'all have any questions for her? Anybody?
Just a comment, I had wondered the same thing, so thank you for raising that, Councilmember Killingsworth, and thank you, Reverend Dancy, for your willingness to be the hands and feet and the people that you know to do this. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Very
much.
good for the town and community. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, we now move to our consent agenda. All consent agenda items are considered routine to be enacted by one motion with the adoption of the consent agenda and without discussion. If a council member requests discussion of an item, the item may be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. We do have one amendment here, consent number 9, and the language reads on the agenda, motion to appropriate funds received from an insurance reimbursement. It should read motion to approve budget ordinance amendment. So that is one change on the consent agenda. All right, do I have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion.
To approve?
All right, second. Okay, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. All right, that passes. All right, we move now to setting of the regular meeting agenda. Is there any changes to the meeting agenda? All right, motion to accept.
Motion to approve.
All right.
Second.
All right, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. All right, thank you. All right, we now move to public forum. And this is the time that you can come and present public comment. And I'll wait for my list to get here. But if you will, come to the front of the podium here, and you have 3 minutes. And we do have a series of lights, green, yellow, and red. So we have no one to speak tonight. All right, so we'll close public forum and move on.
We have a recording. We have one recorded comment.
We do have one. Okay.
This public comment is from Jay Rashid Patel, who lives at 3052 Mavis Bank Circle. Since the town is giving permission to build so many houses, are there any plans to expand roads and sidewalks? On some roads, if a car breaks down, there is no place to pull over, and it is very risky during nighttime.
Okay, thank you. All right.
Thank you.
All right. We'll now move to public hearing 1, and it's annexation 651 by Diane King.
So for both annexation, for public hearing 1, public hearing 2, the 2 annexations for Colby Chase and for Horton Park PUD, the developer is asking for continuance. We've told them this is the last one. After this, we're going to have to pull it off and they're going to have to start all over. So they are requesting it for December 15th meeting. And so we do recommend that these 2 annexations be continued to December the 15th.
Okay. Any objections, comments for that? Okay. Do we have a motion?
I move we continue public hearings 1 and 2 to December 15th.
Okay, second.
Second.
All right. Any more discussion? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. All right, it passes unanimously. We move now to public hearing number 3, annexation number 690.
We're going to get the slides up here. So this annexation is King's Grant. It's generally located in the western portion of our jurisdiction. This was previously approved as a subdivision. They would like to annex in order to be able to get their construction plans approved, and they do need annexation in order to get town water and sewer. And we do recommend approval of the annexation tonight.
Thank you. Any questions for staff? Motion?
We need a public hearing.
Oh, that's
Oh,
right.
sorry.
Moving too fast here. All right, I'll go ahead and I'll open up public hearing for this matter. There's no one signed up for public hearing, so I'll go ahead and close it for comments and refer the matter to council for a possible motion. Now it's your turn.
Motion to approve.
All right,
A second.
all right. Any discussion on it? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. All right, that passed unanimously. All right, we now move to public hearing number 4. Quasi-Judicial public hearing, a possible motion regarding a major site plan for Apex Friendship Elementary School located at 7901 Human Olive Road. And I'm going to read an opening statement for the public hearing here. The town council normally functions in a legislative capacity. Major site plan hearings are quasi-judicial, which means that the council acts essentially as a court of law. The burden is upon the applicant for the major site plan to put on evidence to show that they meet the criteria found in the town's Unified Development Code, the UDO. Anyone opposed to the application must put on evidence of similar kind showing the criteria have not been met. Testimony must be given under oath. All testimony and evidence provided to the council must be competent, material, and substantial. Pursuant to the North Carolina General Statutes, competent evidence does not include opinion testimony of lay witnesses on certain matters. Hearsay evidence will not be admitted. The parties have the right to cross-examine witnesses and to present rebuttal evidence. The town council will apply the criteria contained in the UDO and make its decision based on the evidence and testimony presented at the hearing. The town council will now take up the case of the major site plan for Apex Friendship Elementary School located at 7901 Hume Olive Road. And if you are here tonight to testify, well, actually, do we have any attorneys here and staff who would step up to be sworn in tonight?
Mr. Mayor, before we begin, I am related to a member of the governing body of the applicant, and for that reason, I'd ask to be recused from this matter.
Okay. Anyone else?
So then we will have to then actually just say we agree with that, or I forget now.
Yeah, I mean, you could take a vote on it if you'd like.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, I'll take a vote. Councilmember Mahaffey to be recused from this public hearing. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Any more discussion on it? All right, we're good. Thank you, sir. All right, also I want to remind the council members, there's a checklist in front of you. And you should be checking off on the standards as testimony is given and take notes of any questions that you have concerning what a particular standard has been met. This will help us save time at the end of the hearing. Okay, so at this time, we do want to identify all the applicants, supporters, and opponents. So, yep, if you would. Right here to my right, to the town clerk.
What's happening?
Okay, swear the testimony swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give to be the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Thank you.
Okay, can I go ahead and identify the applicant by name, please?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. Would you prefer that I keep the mask on or remove?
I just need just a name right now. I just want to take some notes.
Sure. Mine is Kenneth Haywood, an attorney with the law firm of Howard Stallings, here on behalf of the Wake County Board of Education.
Okay, thank you. All right, are there any supporters for this? Okay. If you would give me your name, please, if you step up.
My name is Bob Williams. I'm with Boomerang Design. We're the design firm for the elementary school.
Okay, thank you. Any other supporters? If you would step up and give your name, please.
Alice Reese, CLH Design, Site Civil Landscape Architects for the project.
Okay, thank you.
Josh Ranke with Ramey Kemp and Associates, traffic engineer.
Thank you. All right, any opponents tonight? Oops, I'm sorry, we got one
Sorry.
more.
Shane Webster with Wake County Public Schools. I'm the senior facility planner for this project and a registered architect in the state of North Carolina.
Okay, thank you. All right, anyone opposing tonight? All right, that makes it easier. Okay, at this time, I will give each council member and myself an opportunity to describe any communications about this case that have been made with or by him prior to tonight's hearing. Any relational or financial conflict related to this case, and whether he or she will be able to decide this case impartially and solely on the competent evidence presented at the hearing. So we'll start with council member.
I have had no communications, I have no conflicts, and I can be impartial.
Okay.
I've had no communication, no financial or relational interactions, and I can be impartial.
I've had no relational conflicts, I can be impartial, and I have no communications related to this.
I have had no communications, I have no relationships involved, and I have no conflict. I can be impartial.
Okay. I have no communications either, in relational or financial conflict, and I can be impartial, so we'll move forward. All right, I do want to ask each council member if you have viewed the site, and if so, describe observations.
No.
I have not viewed the site.
I have not viewed the site in relation to this.
Okay, I have not viewed the site either.
I have not.
Okay, great. All right, we'll move on now to open the statements, and we'll start with our staff. Shelley Mayo.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Just to kind of orient you to the site a little bit. Here we go. I'm sure all of you are aware of Apex Friendship High School and Middle School, but the elementary school is located on the same piece of property. It is on the southwestern side of the property. As you may remember, we recently approved a rezoning, or you recently approved a rezoning to add 5 3/4 acres to the school site. That is why this is not perfectly shaped like a rectangle right here. The site was rezoned to RR to match the rest of the school, with the surrounding being planned unit development CZ and then Wake County R40W and additional rural residential as well. The proposed site for the campus consists of about 117.15 acres. It's a shared campus for all 3 schools. The high school was approved in 2012 and opened in fall of 2015. The middle school was approved in 2016 and opened in the fall of 2018. Last month, Town Council approved a rezoning to add additional acreage, which is allowed for this site to this school to increase by student capacity by about 40%. That's huge because originally this was going to be a much smaller school than Wake County normally opens. And as you know, we already have 2 elementary schools in the area that are capped. It's east of the Friendship, this portion is east of the Friendship Station PUD and south of Hume Olive Road. The area that was added is vacant and wooded with an intermittent stream running along the western property line here. The applicant conducted a virtual neighborhood meeting on July 8th, 2020. That meeting report is attached to your staff report. We've listed the zoning conditions that were from last month's rezoning. That only applies to the 5.7 3.6 acres that were added in, so not to any of the others. This slide shows you the existing conditions. Everything that's grayed out has already been constructed or already dedicated and is not planned to be impacted by this project. I mean, as you can see, I hope there will be some additions here along the driveway to the high school, then down through here, and then we're going to be connecting this area and back up through here. And this is the area that will be under construction. When the Apex Friendship High School and middle schools were built, most of the RCA for this site was dedicated at that time. There were 40-foot type A buffers all around the perimeter of the property and a 30-foot type E buffer along Hume Olive Road. There's also additional RCA located in these general areas here and here, as well as the UDO allows for athletic fields to count 50% towards their RCA requirement as well. So most of the RCA has already been dedicated for this. There will be some additional RCA dedicated for this site as well, and that'll bring us up to the required total of 25%. They're actually providing a little bit more. They're going to be bringing it up instead of to 29.29 acres to 30.76 acres. I have a small typo in my staff report. Staff report says 30.45. It's 30.76, so it's much more. And then because the site added on some additional property, we now have a stream buffer here to the west. That's an intermittent stream, so that'll be a 50-foot protected buffer along that area. To give you an idea of how the site is going to work, incoming traffic will enter here at the high school, come down, the roundabout is right here, it will act as a one-way, come through here, come through the site in this direction, loop back around and come back out. And then this whole section from the roundabout here all the way out to here is one way. So this will all be one-way traffic with a bus lane, which can also be used as an emergency pullover lane if necessary. And then exiting here at the Evans Road stoplight. Okay. The applicant has also agreed to install sidewalk, which is shown in the orange line here, to allow students to walk and actually be able to reach the entire campus. So this orange line will come down through here. It's being installed on the western side of the existing drive and then reach the front door here. And then in this area we have the greenway easement that the school has also dedicated for us to connect to the western developments when those finish up. The school is provided for ample parking. The UDO requires 104 spaces. The school is providing 105. In addition, the project provides 15 bicycle parking spaces, while the UDO only requires 14. The landscaping for the major site plan meets the requirements of the UDO. In addition, the school added a condition for that 5.7 acres that says that they will be adding, to support the reestablishment of forest, the project will use a reforestation seed mix on any disturbed areas which have slopes of 3 to 1 or less and are not located within the RCA or SCMs. They've actually done that across the whole site, not just that 5.7 acres that we got added in. And this is just to give you, this doesn't show all of the school campus, but this is the slide that shows most of it. The stacking for the traffic will go through here for drop off and pickup, circle up this way, back along and out, and then come back all the way around to here. The TIA requires 1,720 linear feet of stacking. The site is providing 2,070 linear feet, so 2,070. So it's in excess of what was required. And then Wake County Public Schools has committed to trying to build this section of the Greenway as well. They aren't certain if they'll be able to with their current budget. Once they put it out to bid, they'll have a better idea of how much that will cost. But if their budget allows them to, they are committed to building this. They just can't say 100% at the moment that the budget will allow that. One moment. Here we go. Now, for proposed utilities, the major site plan is going to use the existing town water and sewer services. I've highlighted the existing services in purple here. It will come down and connect to Beaver Creek sewer at one point, and then the water is in kind of this tealish blue color as well. Due to the addition of the extra 5.876 acres, the site now abuts an intermittent stream and a natural draw for sewer. The property boundary is the stream, and the natural draw is split between the Wake County property and the Friendship Station properties here to the west. The town's standard specifications and details requires that a developer extend sewer to the property lines to enable future connection to adjoining property. Where strict adherence to the requirements would cause an unnecessary hardship due to things like topological features, the town council may authorize a fee in lieu for the reasonable cost of the applicant's fair share of the improvement. The full cost of the improvements is estimated to be $114,670. There's an engineer's estimate attached in your packet. After meeting with Wake County Public Schools, their engineer, our water resources staff, and I was involved in planning as well, it was determined that the natural draw is split between the Apex Friendship Schools campus and the future Friendship Station PUD's property, so it's split evenly. Due to the natural draw split, topography, and other engineering factors, the location of the sewer is unlikely to be constructed on Wake County Public Schools property. They already have sewer provided for them. They're already using this section. Additional sewer would probably be on the other side of the stream for that reason. And the burden of the sewer extension should be shared equally between the property owners on both sides of the draw. Based on this, the applicant and water resources staff recommend the following. The applicant will not be required to dedicate a sewer easement as the infrastructure is expected to be on the western side of the stream. This is to avoid having a whole bunch of additional costly and difficult to maintain sewer crossings. And then the applicant will pay a fee in lieu, will pay half of the fee in lieu in the amount of $57,335, representing their fair share of the cost of the improvements. The applicant and our water resources staff have both agreed that that's a fair compromise. The site in general meets the requirements of the UDO and staff's opinion, and I'm happy to, I forgot to show you our building elevations. These are lovely. So, if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them for you.
Okay. Thank you.
Sorry, Donna. My name is Shelley Mayo. I'm a AICP certified planner. I've been working for the town as a city planner for 7 years, and I have a master's degree in city planning.
All right, any questions for her?
Ms. Mayo, can you give us the school capacity number, or can the school people speak to that? Do we have an estimate on?
We have the number. I don't have it in front of me at the moment, but I know that the school's engineer does.
Okay, I'd like to hear that, if someone can share that at some point. Thanks.
Actually, I do have one question. So originally the site was planned out for, I guess, 3 schools, but a smaller elementary school. So how does, I know there's a road study about that, but like, how does planning view like this change at this point? It's, you know, I know you mentioned the school needs, but kind of, what's the process when there's like a proposal for you guys to build something bigger on what was supposed to be a smaller, project?
Staff actually helped to coordinate between the school and Friendship Station when it was when we were told that the school was actually going to be much smaller than the typical one. Generally speaking, it would come back in with a new revision to the plan. So we were actually ready to take this plan to town council in February of this year. And then the school decided that they would much rather build an additional, a larger school instead of having to find additional land somewhere in Western Apex to build an additional school that wouldn't serve as many students and still wouldn't have the same capacity as a school of the normal size plus another school of the normal size. We're looking at probably needing another elementary school sometime in the next 5 years or so, is what I've been told. So for that reason, it seemed to us like this was a much better use of the resources and the available large collectors and all of the road improvements that have already been installed to make this a bigger school. We've reviewed all of the aspects of it, both at the smaller school when that was in review, and then this larger one since it's come in. And that was 3 months of review for the initial school layout, maybe 2 or 3 months of review. And then this one has been 3 months of review as well. So we've taken our time and looked at it. And we agree that it's probably a better fit. Does that answer your question? Okay.
To draw attention, I guess, for the record too, related to an issue that we've had previously with the other schools that we were able to work out initially with the school system and the project around the communications device. It's on the roof to help with the issues related to that rural nature of that area. So just wanted to see if that was something that was in here.
My understanding is the school is putting those in their schools at this point. And the reason I didn't add it as a specific condition is that they've agreed to put those in all of their new schools. But I would prefer to let the applicant's engineer or someone verify that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, thanks, Ms. Mayo. All right, well now I'll call the applicant for opening statement.
Good evening again, Mr. Mayor, members of the Town Council. My name is Kenneth Hayward again with the law firm of Howard Stallings. Our address is 5410 Trinity Road in Raleigh. We're excited anytime that we can come before a town and talk about elementary school. It's always an exciting thing because elementary schools are a hot commodity in any community to be able to serve the ever-expanding population. And so I was actually one of the attorneys involved, or the attorney involved, in the acquisition of the additional land to be able to make this what is now going to be, I believe, an 800-member capacity elementary school versus what it was going to be before, which was going to be a much smaller school. And so it's exciting that we were able to work with our adjacent property owner to be able to acquire the property. We appreciate all the time and attention that the town council was involved informally, staff as well, and involved in being able to get to this point. I was not before you during the time of the rezoning, but I appreciate your hearing the presentation for the rezoning to in order us to be able to get to this point. So quasi-judicial hearings are obviously unique. They sometimes tend to take a lot of time, so I'm going to try to stop talking and move it on to the people that you want to hear from, which are the experts. But let me just very briefly explain to you who we have tonight, so that if you have any questions, you will know that they can be answered. We have, on behalf of the Wake County School System, as you've already heard, Shane Webster, who is the Senior Facility Planner. We have Alice Reese, who is the Project Manager with CLH Design, the landscape architect for the site. We have Josh Rinke, who is with Ramey Kemp, who is a professional engineer, who has conducted the traffic study and worked with your wonderful staff in reviewing the traffic studies for the site. And then we have Bob Williams, architect with Boomerang, and all those people were sworn in and introduced themselves to you before. So the way that I would like to conduct this is to be able to go ahead and call on Alice Reese first as our first expert witness. And after they finish their presentations, then I'll come back with you some summary remarks to make sure that we've satisfied all the requirements on the UDO to be able to get the approval for the major site plan that's before you today. But if I could, at this point in time, ask Ms. Reese to come in. Now I'm going to ask her some introductory questions and then let her give a presentation. Ms. Reese, if you could please identify yourself to the Town Council.
Yes. Alice Reese, CLH Design at 400 Regency Forest Drive in Cary, North Carolina. I'm a professional landscape architect in the state of North Carolina. I've been at my firm for 16 years.
Ms. Reese, are you familiar with the major site plan that's before the council tonight?
Yes.
And have you been principally involved in the design of this in your capacity as project manager or CLH?
I have both with the smaller capacity and the larger capacity.
I'll let you move forward then.
All right. Thank you. And Shelley gave a pretty thorough overview of the school, so I'll again try to keep it brief, but here is an overview of the 3-campus school with the elementary school in the southwest corner of the property. The slide on the left shows that smaller capacity school, and the slide on the right shows the larger capacity school. Couple highlights that we want to point out is that with the larger capacity school and the redesign, we were able to orient the entrance of the building towards the other schools on the campus. So this is the entrance of the elementary school building. As Shelley said, buses approach from the north and drop off children in the back, and then cars pass again through the front, operate through the carpool lane, and drop off at the main entrance of the school. We have a couple items that Shelley did not mention. The play areas are in the back of the school here, and so they're acting as sort of a transition between that school building and then the natural tree save area and the stream. We're able to use the topography to our advantage and create some distinct and interesting play areas as well. I'd like to point out this area here. As Shelley said, I have gone ahead and specified for reforestation mix on all slopes that are 3-to-1, even those outside of the new acres. Also wanted to point out that the reforestation mix has a 2-phased planting approach. The first being a meadow seed mix that will hold the slopes, and the second will be the actual seedlings. And those can be planted in the fall. Again, we received an extension on the planting season so that because the schools typically open in the late fall, you would be planting in the heat of the summer. So by allowing us to plant later in the season in the fall, those seedlings have a better chance of survival. So I'm excited about how many trees we're going to have on campus after. I also wanted to talk about the traffic flow. Again, Shelley covered that, I think, pretty well. And Josh can talk a little more about traffic flow as well.
All right, any cross-examination for? Okay, thank you.
Once again, my name is Bob Williams, project manager for Boomerang Design, the architectural firm for the project. Space bar to get to the next.
Down
I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on the building, but if you looked at Alice's site plan, you'll notice that there's 3 components to that building. Initially, there were only 2. We had a 3-story wing, and then all of the other components were a single story that were mixed together. With the additional student capacity, what we ended up having to do was introduce a third component, which is the one that is basically closer to the east-west buffer, and it is a single story. That's where the pre-K and the kindergarten is, that it allowed us to concentrate the upper grades in the three-story building. The three-story building is actually 3 stories in the center, but it steps down as it gets closer to the ends. The main building where Alice showed the bus drop-off and the parent drop-off, that is a single-story building, and it has the gymnasium, cafeteria, dining, basically the support, the admin areas. So that kind of just gives you a rough layout. So if I look at this building, you'll see Building A, that's what we call basically the admin building and the support. Building B, that's what we call the classroom tower. And the first, if you look at the 2 ends, those are single-story. Then you'll see a little bit of bump out. Those are 2-story, and then when it gets to that center section, that's a 3-story. And that allowed us to get the first, second, third, fourth, and fifth grade classes that are required into that building. This is the second and third floor. So you can see where it kind of second floor it steps in. And then on the third floor, you can see the grade out areas on the end, which is the lower floors. The building is basically very compatible with the existing 2 campus buildings that are there now. We use the same tone of brick and the same tone of both of the existing buildings have metal panel systems on them for articulation, and we've incorporated that on this building as well. So it should go very, very well with the existing campus building. So it's not like we're designing something out on its own. It'll work really well with the with the existing campus. What you're looking at here is the parent pickup, drop off in the main entry. Was that the last one? I guess so. Okay. That's all I have.
Any cross-examination, Council?
I just have a question. With new school buildings, can you speak to any architectural features that enhance safety for staff and students?
All of the perimeter of the buildings, specific doors have card readers, so there's only access with card readers so that the students stay secure within the buildings. We use if I go back to the site plan, you'll see connectors between the buildings. Those are secure connectors so they can travel between buildings secure. Shane, I don't know if you might want to add to that as far as security capacity. I mean, the windows are sized and located so that each classroom has the capacity to, if there is a reason for an event, that they can get away from the windows and kind of find a secure corner in the classroom in case there is an event. Those are the kind of things that we think about. But you cannot get into this building without being let in by the front staff or a card key. If that's anything else you need beyond that.
Thank you. We're always, just thinking about how we can be as safe as possible.
Gotcha.
For our children and staff.
Anyone else?
I just have a question, and this, I think you're the right person for this, but in thinking about how some schools have just small, flexible room spaces for resources, so if children need like a food pantry or sort of other things that are necessary, but where people don't necessarily see the children getting, where it's like a nice space. Is there a flexibility to do something like that, especially in this moment where people may need more help than normal?
I know that Wake County is programming those into future schools. We were at the kind of threshold that we got in before that became part of the program. So we don't have specific spaces for pantries and food pantries and stuff like that. But I do know, based on other schools that we have used as references, that the staff tend to create those pantries by using either a PTA room or something like that. So
Anyone else? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Members of the council, those were our 2 primary witnesses we were going to call upon tonight. We do have, as we indicated, Josh Rinke, who's here with Ray McKemp, the traffic person. My understanding is that there are no currently outstanding issues between transportation engineering staff and the school system related to traffic. If you have any specific questions, he's certainly here. He can address those in terms of this particular major site plan. But since there are not any specific outstanding issues, I don't necessarily need for him to say hello to you just to say hello to you because you have a long agenda. But he is here if you have any specific questions.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions for him?
I have a couple.
Okay.
I was wondering if you could kind of describe, I was looking through the charts and the traffic study, but just describe the interaction with the traffic for this school versus the other two schools, which will be obviously in action at the same time.
Right. So Josh Ranke, Ramey Kemp and Associates, registered professional engineer in the state of North Carolina, pre-qualified to do school traffic studies by NCDOT, 18 years experience, 5808 Farrington Place, Raleigh, North Carolina. So, sorry, wanted to get all that out of the way. So to give you an idea, I know one of the things you mentioned earlier also was, the change in the school size from the original. So this is one of those cases where it's so nice we got to do it twice. We actually did a traffic impact analysis, and then they said, increase in student size, well, let's update that traffic impact analysis and include that. So that was something that was considered, we did. In terms of how we're looking at this is a unique, where it's got a campus of different schools, and that is something where we're always looking at staggering the bell schedules. So what that means is, you have all these parents that are coming and dropping off. You're making sure you have minimum times between the school starts and the school finishes, so that you've pretty much cleared out one school site before the other one starts to get the traffic coming in. So with this one, this is a little unusual. With the study hours that we looked at and things like that, it's a very conservative analysis because we're saying all these residential developments that are being built out there, we're taking all that traffic and putting it in there, but our start time is actually a little later than what typically the peak would be on the adjacent roadways. So it is something where we've got Wake County Public Schools has worked with us. They're looking at staggering these school start times so that you don't have the high school and the elementary all coming at the same time and kind of having that conflict. So once again, I know with some of the circulation, other things that came into play is our entrance for the parents and buses and all is with the high school entrance. So they come there and then they wrap out and they actually exit at the signal, which is nice, over by the middle school because they're pushed one way through the site. So once again, that's why you have those staggers, is so you don't have the high school starting at the same time and all of that traffic coming in at once, nor do you have, the middle school traffic. So they are spaced out, as they do usually have fairly concentrated periods where you have the heaviest traffic. So does that kind of answer that, or do you need specific times? Because then I'm going to say maybe Wake County Public Schools can kind of break it down with exactly, but they are staggered in larger segments, so it's not they're 15 minutes apart or 20. It needs to be further apart than that to kind of actually thin out that traffic. So they are staggered nicely where we don't expect there to be that overlap of traffic.
Okay. And I had another question.
Sure.
In the study, there were a couple intersections that were F grades that we're talking about, it would help to have a signal for them, but it was unlikely to be warranted by DOT. So can you help me understand, maybe in 10 or 15 years when the school's built and the area's been probably a lot more houses out there. So will there be signals at these intersections that are the F grades eventually, do you think? Or is it more like we're going to have some pain for a while and then once the population grows out there, it'll be better?
So that's a good point. And so that is something we looked at, and we make recommendations because we're following NCDOT guidelines and the development ordinance for the town and saying, oh, we have these levels of service that are poor. What can we look at for mitigation to kind of improve that? A lot of times it's a signal is your best bet. So, and the reason that, we submit that and then the NCDOT comes back and says, well, we're not looking at a signal at this point, is usually they say there are different warrants, which means you look at traffic throughout the day, and if it's heavy traffic for a very short duration, the likelihood of a signal is less than if you have a sustained, or if you have crash history or the traffic's really bad during a short period, that might increase the likelihood. I know one of the worst intersections out there, Richardson Road and Hume Olive, that is one that we considered, and there's also one of the adjacent developments, one of the residential developments out there, that a signal is also tied to that. They've got that as a committed element, so that could be part of the reason where they're saying it's, we're not seeing the warrants now when NCDOT reviewed my work, but they know that there's another developer that would be providing that signal also.
Okay.
So it's not necessarily a timing like, 10 years from now I can say, yes, it's definitely a signal. I think it's, more of if the traffic starts to stretch out. And that's what some of this was when you say, well, you got people going to work, you've got this one school, this other school, and now a third one. It starts to prolong that, and that's why we did make those recommendations, and NCDOT said at this time they're not looking to add signals as part of this project.
Okay.
Anyone else?
All right, thank you.
Yes.
I believe that that Mr. Williams stated his credentials. You could get him to state his name and his credentials.
You just need Bob Williams, project manager, Boomerang Design, got 35 years of experience within the architectural construction. I am not a registered architect, but I've been a project manager for 20-some years. So.
Your address?
6400 Falls of Noose Road, Suite 210, I believe. Actually, I can tell you. I just go there. I don't even remember. I'm not even close. So let me get it right here. 6131 Falls of Noose Road, Suite 204. There we go.
Good thing you had that card on you. You get lost.
Tell me, yeah. Thank you, Madam Clerk.
So in conclusion, regarding the major site plan that's before you for Apex Friendship Elementary School, I want to just highlight a few things that are highlighted in the staff report that you have tonight. First of all, I think it's exciting for Apex. The school system has a few tri-campuses among all of its different campuses in Wake County. I remember one of the first ones that we did in North Raleigh. And so to be able to have 3 campuses here on Humanity Olive Road, to me is exciting. I think it's exciting to be able to have the continuity of elementary, middle, and high all on one particular campus. And so we're excited about that. And in looking at the different criteria that we have to look at and what staff has looked at before we ever came here tonight, they have looked at the landscaping. You've heard tonight that it does meet all the requirements in the UDO for landscaping. The proposed major site plan is consistent with the Apex Transportation Plan, so you've seen that tonight as well. You've heard about the utilities and that we do have availability of water sewer services, and so we have all the existing utilities that are already serving the other 2 schools at the site. Storm drainage, stormwater control measures comply with the UDO. Grading meets the requirements of the UDO. Lighting meets the requirements of the UDO. There are no supplemental standards. And as you've already heard from Ms. Mayo, the proposed major site plan complies with the standards provided in the UDO. A lot of that is because of the fact that because we already have a high school and a middle school that's been built out, issues such as right-of-ways that may normally come into place are not necessarily here because they were addressed with the first 2 schools, since this site is now the very rear of the property. But in working through all those, there are certain major site standards that for you to be able to approve, which are listed in A through I of the staff report. I'll just touch on those very briefly. Some of those do not apply to this particular campus, and I'll sort of talk about those very quickly. Compatibility is the development proposed compatible with the character surrounding land uses. You have rezoned this site a few weeks ago, so it meets your zoning standards. There are no supplemental standards for B, so that would not apply. The site development standards, development proposed in the site plan and general layout and design comply with the appropriate standards in Article 8. I've already shared with you that it does meet all the standards in the UDO. Mitigation of steep slopes, if any, again, that complies with your UDO. E, dedication of right-of-way for thoroughfare plan, that would have been dealt with the other schools, so that's not applicable tonight. Any requirements under 7.5 have been addressed, if any. Other relevant standards of the ordinance, to the extent that they are required, again, they have complied with the UDO. And then standards of Article 7, subdivision, Article 14, if appropriate, and Greenway, we've talked about the easement that's going to be dedicated, so that complies. And then in terms of impact to public facilities, in terms of any type of significant adverse impact, since we already have schools for the high school and middle school there, that we have adequate fire protection, emergency service protection, and utilities, so nothing new will need to be impacted in terms of servicing this particular school. So based on the Wake County Public School System and the Wake County Board of Education owner of the subject property, I would request the Town Council approve the major site plan that is before you tonight based on the testimony that you've heard. I think based on what the mayor asked in the very beginning, there is no one here in opposition to this. I believe we have presented material, competent, and substantial evidence through all the different expert witnesses. None of their testimony has been challenged. There's no one who has spoken in opposition to any of their testimony in terms of cross-examination. Staff, I appreciate again the report that they have done and the work with us, and we just appreciate your working with us tonight to listen to us, and would ask for favorable approval of the site plan so that we can then start the new year with starting with putting out requests for construction bids, and then hopefully getting through the bid process and moving along to be able to hopefully be able to build a new elementary school in this wonderful town. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Haywood. All right, any closing arguments, Ms. Mayo?
No, sir.
Okay. All right, so I'll ask council members to review their checklist. If you have any questions about testimony related to a particular standard, now's the time to ask questions of the applicant and staff.
I just wanted to get clarification around the communication device. I think it was alluded to, and I just wanted to get that from you.
Good evening. Shane Webster, Senior Facility Planner, Wake County Public Schools. Been with Wake County for 2 years now, plus or minus. Practicing architect in the state of North Carolina for the last 35 years. But yeah, to your question, we do provide communication boosters and additional information devices up on the roof on the elementary schools. That's pretty standard on all our schools.
Okay.
Okay, good.
I think I am.
All right.
Thank you.
No more questions for applicant or witnesses? Okay. All right, I'll go ahead and close public hearing and refer the matter to council for deliberation, possible motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
All right. Any discussion on it? Okay. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. All right, that passed unanimously. Thank you, everyone. Welcome back.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, now move to old business 1, Colleen Murray's Downtown and Small Business Development Coordinator.
I don't have any.
Oh, you don't have to.
I just didn't want to. I don't know if you want to keep that up there. Ah. Hello.
Good evening. So tonight is the discussion that we were going to continue from the last time we met on possibly extending the existing parking to dining program past its existing scheduled end on at the end of this week on Sunday the 8th would be the last day. And I basically am just here to kind of sort of guide this discussion and see if we want to extend or facilitate that discussion.
Okay.
What are you hearing from our business community?
Well, obviously, we have a nice weather week coming up. And so it could potentially extend an additional week. Weather-wise, we're blessed here in North Carolina. That said, I do know that holiday decorations are going to be coming up and starting with their install in downtown on November 16th. So my recommendation to you folks, if you were considering extending past the 8th, would actually be to extend no further than the 15th, just so that the holiday decorations and that install doesn't get interrupted with whatever happens with the parking to dining program.
Okay.
Do you think our business community would be satisfied with that and appreciative of that?
It's an interesting mix because we are in phase 3 in North Carolina, which will still restrict capacity for those restaurants. That said, we're definitely starting to get into that holiday season. I have not seen an issue yet with parking relative to the existing spaces, and that the use of the 15 spaces that we have now for the parking to dining program has interrupted that flow. That said, from the last time we surveyed these folks, we do have a portion of that population, which was around 25% of those folks, that said that they would like to see it end earlier. So it's trying to balance that, decision between the needs of the retail and the holiday shopping season and the needs and wants and desires of the restaurants and some of the retail that definitely gets supported by the fact that there's a larger activity boost from people coming to dine. And obviously, with the level of COVID still in a position of increasing, people are still desiring a space and wanting to eat outside. So we are definitely in a balancing act. I know that I did have an initial discussion with Shane Brees, who's current president for ADBA, about options like once this sort of sunsets and we're looking at, embracing sort of the weather and it's winter and things that we might be able to do to sort of help the restaurants or mitigate the issues. Because obviously at some point we're going to get to a point where it's 40 degrees out. Nobody's going to want to sit outside for longer than 30 minutes stationary and eat any kind of meal. So I do think that there are ways we can kind of embrace the season, whether that's having outdoor heaters, and I mean electric heaters, because the propane ones are basically sold out. I mean, it'd be impossible at this point to kind of get something like that. But if we took away the parking to dining program, we could potentially, because here in Apex, we only have to have a 3-foot path on the sidewalk, so we could potentially bump out a little bit of those outdoor dining spaces a little bit further, but we'd have to reconfigure it with maybe smaller tables, like bistro-sized tables, smaller chairs to keep that 6-foot distance while still expanding capacity. But again, working with the restaurants to potentially consider changing up their menu, doing hot drinks versus, cold drinks, doing soups served in styrofoam or in cups, like things that they could potentially do and just kind of work with the weather that they have, not trying to fight against the weather that is. So, and I know that Shane already had an initial kind of conversation with Mr. Mahaffey here about certain options that we might want to consider, whether that's the town-supported grant programs or things like that that might help with some of these things, like whether we could provide some support for additional heating costs that might be increased with the use of outdoor heaters, or the use of having to air purifiers to help people feel more comfortable sitting inside for longer periods of time, or, you know, having to buy those smaller bistro tables to, you know, still get that safe distancing, but provide more spacing, so that because the tables that they have right now are not really conducive so much space-wise, but we started having those initial discussions, and I know we're going to have some further ones. We do have an ADBA meeting on Friday morning where we can continue this discussion. I know that their board's going to continue the discussion too. But that's sort of kind of where we're at, I guess, at this point as to what we could or could not do relative to this. But again, it is winter. I don't know. I've looked at other communities, and people are just sort of embracing the season, whether it's like providing heated igloo spaces outside. Again, I don't know how realistic that is in a downtown environment without an outdoor patio space. You know, and just, you know, but I think that there's ways around it. I mean, having lived in the Northeast as long as I did, and in upstate New York, I will say that you kind of just go with it. I mean, if you know you're going to go out and it's cold, you wear layers. There's things that, like, you know, and you can make it fun without having to go, you know. But again, 30 minutes, you know, I think there's ways we can offer some, like, at least ideas, or you know, for them to help pivot what they may be losing from capacity wise.
Thank you.
Sure. Thanks, Mayor. So I'll just start by saying I'm in favor of an extension to the 15th, as described. I think that's a good idea. It's worked so far. Another week or two is not going to make a big difference in terms of the inconvenience, I believe. Stopping before the holiday activities makes a lot of sense to me, so I think that's a good day, and I'm going to support that. Backing up for a second, at a higher level, I kind of see this as us deciding to move into the next phase of helping our businesses mitigate the impact of COVID as the seasons change. And I think that's how I would ask you to think about this decision. When are we going to end phase one, where we extended the dining into the street, and we allowed them to get extra capacity, was what we did there. Phase two is the winter, where that's not really a viable option. We have to think of ways, and the businesses, frankly, have to think of ways to keep going during these cold months. And what's the role of the town in the next couple months to help them and support them? And that's a question we have to answer. And I think Colleen just gave us a bunch of really great ideas that they've come up with and brainstormed about ways that we can get involved, because the two major issues to think about is there's a lot of one-time fixed costs that businesses are going to have to expend to modify their business to still be profitable, to still work in a COVID environment. Stuff like buying new tables that they otherwise, you know, don't have and aren't going to use again. And without some help from the town, it's unclear if it makes sense for them to spend $5,000 to buy a bunch of new stuff to stay open. You know, why not just close down for a month or two? But clearly, as a town, we want our businesses to stay open. We want to still have a vibrant downtown, so it's in our interest to help out. So I would ask that we think about ways to put together a grant program as you described to help you know, restaurants mitigate the impact of COVID in certain criteria that we can set. And the other aspect besides just fixed costs that we can help with grants is utility offsets. If they do have to run heaters or air purifiers, or they keep open a window to get airflow going through when it's 50 degrees outside, is there something we can do there to help them, you know, not have a $2,000 bill instead of a normally $1,000 bill or something? So that's kind of how I view it, is what do we do in this next phase as we try to get through spring, sorry, to keep these restaurants open and thriving. In spring, I don't know what the state's going to be of the pandemic, but you know, it may be that we bring back the parking to dining thing, or it may be that you know, everything's great and we got a vaccine, hopefully. So that's where I'm at. I'll grab some water.
Thank you, sir.
You know, were you about to go?
You can go ahead.
Well, I was just thinking, are we? Yeah, I think the 15th, that recommendation is good. I hadn't thought about the decorations. That seems like a nice stop, and I think there'd be diminishing returns past that, even if we had the small business Saturday Saturday that we just proclaimed. Are we thinking big enough though for January 1st to March 31st? I mean, are we thinking about closing the street down, putting up a tent or something kind of bigger than a grant program. I mean,
like a single one-off, or are you saying like every weekend?
no, have a thing just closed for 3 months and.
For 3 months.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just, you can heat up a tented space a lot easier than you can individual things, I think. So, I mean, I think it's gonna be a long, hard winter, and after January, the traffic and the parking's not gonna be retail's not gonna be as vigorous, most likely. So, I would encourage something, because I think after the winter, I think the parking thing that we've been doing, if this thing goes on until 2022, which hopefully it won't, but who knows? I think the outdoor seating like we've had, I think is nice for the warm months, but January to March, I think will be difficult. So, and the heater thing is fine, but I would encourage going big, and hopefully the ADBA and folks we can discuss something during this time when we end the program that maybe is the phase 2 of our thing will be a larger endeavor, possibly.
Yeah, if I could respond, Mr. Mayor. I think that's a great idea. I like that you're thinking big. I would just point out these things aren't really mutually exclusive. We can both try to help with, help them set up for the majority of the winter, and also, if we do something special in January. And we have to think through how that works, and is it really how do we mitigate that with, with COVID, and what's the interplay with what are the regulations we're in. If you're in a big heated tent, what's the capacity limitation there versus being inside? I don't know how that works. Something we got to research. But I'm certainly not opposed to talking about any idea anyone has to help out, because I worry that no one's gone through a pandemic winter before, and all the stuff that we were worried about over the summer is still there. It still might happen. So any ideas that we have is appreciated. I also want to say that in terms of some sort of grant program, I think it should apply to all restaurants in Apex, not necessarily just Salem Street and the ADBA related businesses. So that's.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, sure. I appreciate this conversation. I think I like the idea of thinking about phasing, so it's almost like we're in like the winter phase, instead of calling like the phase 1, 2, or 3. Like, let's just be different, call it the winter phase. And then I agree with Mr. Maffey related to extending through the November 15th. And I also agree with you, Councilman Gant, about, thinking big. So perhaps we can, send back a recommendation for, the ADBA and other stakeholders to sort of think big about what that would look like. And I know our staff would have to think about that too, related to, Russell's over here like, oh my goodness. So, yeah, so. Traffic? Salem, Fayetteville Street, thing, so yeah, but I do like the idea of we're not trying to hurt you, but like the heaters and the air purifiers and things like that, it get people more, will draw people out more, make them feel more comfortable. So I think by supporting our businesses, we're supporting, our constituency in a big way, so they can get out of their homes. And many of our, like I said to our U.S. senators, our business owners are workers. They often work in their businesses. So, so I don't know if that was your motion. I'll do a second.
Okay. Sure. I already got a motion and a second. Any further discussion on this item?
Can you define the motion, say the motion?
The motion would be to extend the parking and dining program to the 15th of November, which I'd point out is before our next meeting, so this is it.
Right. Yeah, and then I wanted to do sort of, I guess, a friendly amendment, I guess, would be, and also, looking forward to hearing back from our stakeholders related to this phasing, winter phase.
Yeah, and could I ask you a question? Is it possible to get the framework of a program together by our next council meeting, or is that too soon, 2 weeks from now?
For a grant program?
Yeah.
I don't know. Framework, potentially, I guess that would be a budgetary question, like what we were considering. If I had framework to work around numbers wise and budget wise, I think what we're discussing.
Yes, I hear what you're saying. I think maybe approving at the next meeting is probably too soon, but if we could have a more detailed discussion by next meeting of what kinds of stuff we're talking about, what it would generally look like, and get some feedback, and then maybe try to get it in place in December for, to start helping people out.
Yeah, I could definitely have an outline for something.
Thank you.
All right. So we got the amendment, motion second. All right. Any other discussion on it? All right, I'll take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. All right, that passes unanimously. Thank you so much for your work on it. All right, we move now to new business one. This is with Council Member Audrey Killingsworth and Mayor Pro Tem Nicole Dozier. Go for it. Who's first?
You can go first. I would just say that, this is something I'm excited to see, that this is being followed through on. And, I'm glad, Mayor Pro Tem, that you found someone who was interested in taking this and running with it. And that is, we heard the details earlier, and we have that information in your packet. The amount requested is not very expensive, and it looks like if it's all online, then the amount is going to be even lower than that as well. So this is something that I'm looking forward to.
Thank you for asking the question. When Miss Dancy was speaking, I thought about, and even her packet, it reflects this mask is not doing good today. I'm sorry for keep pulling on it, y'all. I grabbed the wrong one. It's like the commemorative, spirit really is reflected of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s, dream of a beloved community. She's speaking about bringing together, educational and cultural, public service, the broader community together around this. And then engaging the Divine Nine, which, I'm also a member of Delta Sigma Theta. So just bringing together, some of our public services, and this fits nicely into that. And I think just the way the community wrapped around the community around our town clerk and all the work that she and other folks did on staff related to Black History Month. I think this will be great. I appreciate the flexibility in the proposal too, recognizing the uncertainty around COVID-19. And I do appreciate how she mentioned at Apex Friendship High School, the students who were doing the step show. And I knew that it had stopped, but I really didn't know that it didn't ever start back up until I found out a little bit later that there wasn't anything like that. So I think, dance is something that brings people together, music brings people together. And so stepping really is, really using your body to create music. And I think those things will be morale boosting for the youth who have been inside and in school instead of in school and things like that. So it would be my pleasure to do this. So at this time, I'll make a motion that we approve this proposal as presented with that budget item, or if as a maximum, I guess.
Okay.
And I'll second that.
All right. Any discussion? Further comments?
I'm just excited
Yeah.
about this, and I'm just glad we're doing it and moving forward. And I appreciate so much the Dancy's willingness to really map out these details and have a contingency plan. And I think it also fits with our strategic goals. You all might remember when one of our strategic goals is having a healthy and engaged community. And I think this is one example of that, and the values of inclusion and diversity and honoring that. So I'm excited about it.
I'm excited about it as well. I know the past 2 years for this event, I went to Holly Springs, so because we didn't have anything here. So this is a good opportunity for us. I think I was there with you on the last one. So great opportunity. I think it's something we can build on. I want to see a parade one day. I think that would be great. So I know we got to crawl before we walk, but here we are. So I just thank y'all for bringing it forward. It's very important for our community. So thanks. Any more comments? All right. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. All right. It passed unanimously. Thank you all again.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, so we're moving now to work session one. And that's receive information regarding cost and timing of transportation projects and existing debt capacity in order to consider possible financing options to fund transportation projects. So we'll move to the third floor conference room, okay? And then I'll go ahead and announce this. The closed session will follow. Possible motion to go into closed session to consult with the town attorney pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143-318.1183. So we'll move to third floor conference room, take a short break. So is 7:40 good enough for everybody? Okay, all right, thank you.
Hey, Russell. Russell gonna start running. He's like, I'm going home. Russell,
take Commerce one way and go around downtown.
You know Russell, don't you?
Certainly close the street. You're gonna have, I mean, you're not gonna make everybody happy. That's the thing you gotta remember.
It's okay.
You're still
Still on. Or you gonna do
For that police and fire.
Thank you, madam.
Oh, yes.
Thank you for that.
Gave you the wrong one.
Yeah, that's what I was going. I was like, that's why I'm
Not
like,
that I
oh,
gave you the
seriously?
wrong one, I didn't mean to give it to you
Oh,
at
that's
all.
okay. No.
Because
It was good.
she wanted to do this next week.
Right.
I don't understand why she wanted to do it next
Well,
week.
it's okay. Well, usually I catch it, and then as I was reading, I was like, 7.
See, because remember the lady called and she wanted to have it early?
Right.
So I had it in the back of the folder.
Got it. It's all good. No, I was telling you, thank you for reminding them to stay.
Yeah, people learn how to do it though. They would learn to take the route. They sitting in the first day.
Anything is possible.
Okay. Building will make sure.
Brett and Terry are here.
We'll look forward to your answer to this from staff or about the, did you give it to everybody too, or just from my thing? Okay, I haven't read it.
Is that when we had the conference?
Yeah, but then I was, did I reach out or an email? Something I did. He said, reach out. Got any nails? If the package didn't include what I asked him for, and it didn't. So this is what they said, so I'll read it and see what it says. Okay.
So when y'all get a chance, you'll look at
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, I didn't
Okay.
see
You
any
know
of
what,
that. I didn't see any that interested me, but maybe she can custom one for me.
Oh,
Okay.
see how,
I just see a design that I like. I mean, I meant to get back to you. Yeah.
I thought you had already ordered, but you know what,
No.
so, we're on this live stream still, right? So, it was ordered by clinics, I got to sign it tonight. If you need to know all the people. I was just saying, what are you doing? So they told me they had one of all in my mouth at work. So I'm like, okay, I don't think I need to get it. And so I was thinking that those jobs would get it. But I have those, and then actually, I had asked about maybe getting more for kids in Apex, but I'm not sure if I have flexibility until January 29th. But I actually was able to get masks for all the kids. And MASH in Edgecombe County, who had asthma, didn't have masks to go even
Thank you,
go
Ms.
to the
Tessie.
doctor. I was able to use my funding that would have been for meeting expenses, but the family.
Are you going up?
I'm coming. I'm just trying to help out Donna. But yeah, so she instead of the meeting, having all the kids, and the lady was really nice. You know, and you say when people get and they're like, they don't expect to do like that. They expect to do something like this, and I keep pulling away. I grab the wrong. This is like somebody gave it James, you know, like at work or something, and it's not doing right, or people are unprocessed something. Oh, you have snacks? Is this from upstairs? Yes. Make sure, because you know, if it says the word kid in it, the mayor will grab it, whatever the snack.
I got my candy.
What is that snack? It's candy with Sour Patch Kids.
kids.
Everything's good.
So far,
All
making
right.
sure nobody comes in here doing something silly because it's
Yeah.
still streaming.
Yeah, that's why he told me to just stop in to make sure everything was good down here.
Yeah.
All right. All right, everything's good.
Are they in closed session?
Yeah, we're in closed session now.
Okay, so Conrad took out all the stuff.
They told, yeah, I said, you gotta go. I was like, all right.
So you get to come out here.
Yeah.
Oh, there's Conrad.
All right.
Yeah, he says anything backed up, now he's over there.
All right. Have a good one. Take care.
You too.
All right.
So, right.
Just pick up this stuff. Take it off and,
So you put the surface hub back.
Yep, service hub is in IT.
They're left there,
Yeah, they're up there doing their thing.
in full session,
Yep.
and we're being like,
Yes.
that's why I'm here. All right, I will wait and see if I can do that stuff. How long does it take you to get home?
35 minutes.
Yes, it don't take that long.
So. Oh, you're still here too.
Yeah, we're gonna test doing that stuff. So, we got the closed session, which, yes, is pretty much. Take a long time.
I don't think so. It always says just about this. We're good for the morning, right? Planning committee in the morning?
Planning committee in the morning is you and David, correct?
Yes.
We're all set for that. Thank y'all for your help tonight. use this in the business
Y'all have a good evening. We'll catch up with y'all. Thank you.
All right, I will be here, so just text me when you get home. That's all it's about.
Cool. I was thinking about it while I was sitting there, and I think we could actually manage to put everything we need, shut this whole thing down on like the random iPhone, this one that's been used is on the code I use. The only thing I think was just hang out is Hey Touch. And we would put the VPN on it.
We'll plan for that when it's turned into
full-blown
Kramer. This is Hey Touch, Kramer control. So we'll get it all ready. I mean, that's the next step once we master it. Re-edit, the wirecast and all that kind of stuff. And then we're comfortable with it. Then we're going to come out, do that all the way. Then we'll be able to, that's how I look at that. YouTube live streams for other people.
Close.
And then we can,
Yeah, get it, I mean, get it done tonight. Right, we'll get that. The exact scenario.
Right, the only thing that they wanted was the
Which I think we can do, so, I think we can look for the option. Maybe we
You can look at
Well, I think with Wirecast, we can do capture the screen, we can do a picture-in-picture, or send out to the link. Me too, yeah, totally. I'm getting burnt out, from my phone, you know.
Yeah, that's why you're like, postpone your subject now. How much you know?
I was trying to, like, the girlfriend was saying, Snapchat the other day was insane or something like that. She showed me pictures of, when I first moved up here from Raleigh, I found a cat in the Taco Bell parking lot. We ended up finding it at home. A friend of mine had a friend who grew up here with a cat. We did it together and fixed it up. You gonna toss it too?
Yeah. I'll just save some,
videos. We're starting to teach them stuff, and man, these pictures, we put this little shower mat, like step out of the shower to dry off on. It was the old one that we just weren't using, and so we put it on the side of the kitchen so we can put things in. So we tell them, like, throw your mat, and we pick up on that. We pick up all of the pictures. He's just so smart. Like, you have to just say, go to your mat, and he goes to his own mat. It's like incredible. So, but it's like the highest energy, you know, you can possibly do. So we love it. Yeah, they sleep like 12 hours. But
have that energy. All right. Thank you.
Cool.
Let's go to your
Yep.
home.
Move it.
We're adjourned.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he definitely got that. So, or
So they're not going to come back down here to Matt.
right. I love my stuff here. Yeah, I thought we were coming back, so let's all here. This is one time we all go back. So, is the live stream done?
I know.
Oh, okay.
Turn that off. I was down here monitoring the room. making
Yes.
sure they showed up to perform.
Thank you, Erica. I didn't realize it was you. I thought it would be Conrad here still. You got the short straw.
Thank you.
And I shot you and Jose an email.
Yeah, I just sent you, I opened a ticket with facilities, if it's a motor-related item, which I think it is, I think it's the mechanics, I don't think that motor has the oath to shut it down.
Okay. So it moved a little bit and then
Do you want
stopped.
to come with me and give it a good shot? That's, I think, what it needs.
Oh, really? Oh, okay. Yeah. I'm going to turn these monitors off in here.
We'll get all that.
Oh, you will?
Yeah, he's gonna try to do it all remote, so, yeah,
So I can turn the light on.
turn all the lights on. So that'll be perfect, then he'll know when the stuff's done.
Tell Conrad he can go home.
He can't get this one. We're trying to do everything remote, and he can't get this one. And I have one more thing I might want to try upstairs. I tried something. That one off. Restart.
Usually I look up here, like, when I come in the next